get to the cake. I'm on a mission for Maze, no matter how long it's gonna take. I could just see it already. Give me that new Benz or the Wraith. Watching
Guys, what is going on? We are here with yet another episode of BTL podcast. You guys are familiar with me already. It's Keisha, your host. We have a very, very solid guest today. And we've been trying to get this to happen for a very, very long time now. So I'm very fortunate that we've been able to kind of make this work. Shout out to the virtual options. But I'm pretty sure we'll bring you this conversation in person for a better experience very soon. But today we have, Chanelle Reynolds, right? She is a stud, an author, podcaster, right? Woman in sports. She currently works for the Washington Commanders. She does a little bit of everything. And what I love about this individual is she doesn't really have any limitations, right? And I think she is I don't want to say I know she's the perfect person to kind of not only talk to the men, but more importantly, the women about, just what it takes to kind of be, not a master of one, but a master of many, and really just kind of going for everything that you truly desire, right? She has a very, very, she has a big passion for sports, but she also dives into many different things. And I think she's going to be able to kind of tell us about, how to really just kind of stay focused and locked in. So Chanelle, before I even get into the convo and allow you to just kind of say a few words, I just kind of want to give my flowers. I'm a big fan of what you do. I love your work. Keep up the great work, man. I think it's solid, especially where we come from. You really don't get to see a lot of people from where we come from, make it, and very big and do, a lot of the things that you're doing. So Chanelle, I appreciate you taking time on and getting on the podcast and chopping it up with me. More importantly, trusting me to kind of have this conversation, right? We haven't really, spoke a lot before. We just met each other, neutrally through, homecomings or social media, but we never really had a real opportunity to converse. So for you to just kind of be able to say, I trust your work, I see what you do, and I'm going to go ahead and hop on. I appreciate you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Chanelle Reynolds. But real quick, just kind of let us know how your 2024 is going so far. And we'll kind of dive in, to the conversation.
Well, yeah, definitely, Keith. Thank you for the invitation. And let me just pause real quick and give you your flowers too. Like, I love what you're doing with the show. I do remember meeting you years ago, and I think you had just graduated with your sport management degree. So I'm really excited to see how you have transformed and created this lane for yourself. So big shout out to you.
Appreciate that.
Of course. Okay, what was the question? How's my 2024 going?
How was it? Yeah, how's your year going so far? Like, what's going on? How are you feeling? Like, just kind of talk us up a little bit.
Yeah, so 2024 it's lit. I knew that this was going to be the year that it was going to be full throttle, not only in my 9-to-5 lane, but also in my personal brand lane. So it's a lot of travels, it's a lot of speaking engagements, it's a lot of brand partnerships. And I knew that 2024 was going to be a really big year. So I'm really starting to see that come into fruition.
I love that. And just for some of you that may not know, for some of you that just kind of, follow her and want to follow her journey, Chanelle is, again, not only does she work for the Washington Commanders, I believe you do diversity and inclusion and things of that sort for the Commanders. But not only does she do that, she is 2-time podcast host, one with her twin sister, the Double Dose podcast. She also has a Success Playbook podcast. I believe both are featured on the Revolt TV network. Again, she's an author, and she's a TEDx speaker. She's had plenty of speaking engagements. Before we dive into that real quick, I kind of wanted to, when I knew I was going to talk to you, I'm like, okay, I kind of want to start here because I just want to see where you are with sports really quickly before we dive into the good stuff. So really quick, my question to you is, as a woman in sports and for someone, as a woman who loves sports, how do you feel about this whole WNBA, thing? It don't got to be too specific, but just what's your take on it, right? The cameras are finally shining on women's sports. Of course, shout out to Caitlin Clark and WNBA and things of that sort. But just how do you feel about women's sports in general now? Do you feel like it's getting the attention that it finally deserves? Just how do you feel about it? Just kind of being a woman in sports, although it's not typically for basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And I did start my career in basketball. I started my career with.
Oh, awesome! Good. Okay, great. Awesome.
Yes. So, how do I feel about it? Look, the WNBA has been a great product. I think the world is just finally catching up to it. With recent events, basketball is a contact sport. I'll leave it at that. Let's not baby people. And I will say, yeah, like don't take the fun out the game, right? Don't take the fun out of the game. And I think, but I still think that, I mean, there's a saying, there's no such thing as bad press. People are talking, right? So WNBA is getting the visibility, whether it be from maybe negative press for certain things, but more than importantly, it's that positive press that's out there. So I really do. I'm excited for the direction that it's going.
Good, awesome. And let's kind of dive into now your career with the Washington Commanders in sports. Can you share your journey and what led you to, become, involved with the Washington Commanders, or, in sports or football? What did that look like for you, especially, in college, transitioning into the world of sports? What was the journey like for you? Of course, especially being a woman in the sports field. We know already working in sports is not easy, right? It's very competitive. It takes a lot of work. You have to be very well connected, and, just putting a lot of work and things of that sort. So what did that journey look like for you, leaving from college, going into transitioning into, your career?
For sure, yeah. So, I mean, look, I graduated from Delaware State University. It's a HBCU. It's a small HBCU at that.
You see
And
me? You hear me?
I can hear you and see you now.
Say that again. Can you say that again? I apologize. Say it.
Check 1 2. Check
Did you
1
get?
2.
You good?
All
Did you
right,
get the? Did you get the question? Yeah. Did you get the
Yeah.
question? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. You can go ahead and start again. I'll just put this.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so my journey into the industry. Look, I graduated from an HBCU, a small HBCU, so Delaware State University. Yes. So Delaware State University, and I will say that, of course, being a student, I thought that I was going to go straight from campus to my dream job. That was not the case. My first job out of college was I was a shoe girl at Nordstrom, right? I was your local retail girl. I mean, and I hooked people up like they came in and they
As you should, right?
the floor, and I'll be like, okay, these are the new sales, So I took my job serious, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do. But on that journey, like, I made sure that I really grasped the things that I was supposed to grasp, like whether it be soft skills, like time management, or just grit, hunger, ambition, etc. So that when the opportunity was available for me, I stepped right into it. And I not only stepped into it, I thrived, right? I came in fighting, boxing, right? And I scratched and clawed my way up to the top of the sales board. So I was on the sales floor. Made a very strong name for myself, made a very strong reputation for myself. So I was excited to do that with the Philadelphia 76ers by way of their NBA G League affiliate, the Delaware Bluecoats. And then I had the unique opportunity to come to the Washington Commanders to start up their group sales department. So what I did was I came in from scratch and I built out a department that didn't exist, right? It was a no-brainer for me because not everybody can say that they built a multi-million-dollar department for an NFL team. So I was really excited to do that. But while I was leading that team, I also founded the first employee resource group for the Washington Commanders called the Black Engagement Network, alongside some other key colleagues. So we were working towards that. And I was doing this, director of group sales. So doing the sales thing while also doing this employee resource group thing simultaneously for 2 years. And then I was tapped on the shoulder by the team. And I was asked, like, hey, is this something you want to do full time? And I said yes. So I made the pivot to diversity, equity, and inclusion about 3 years ago.
Awesome. And what did that, and what did that take for you to really be so confident, especially it's something that you love, it's something that you're passionate in, but like, how did you develop that confidence to say, you know what, this is something that I really can do, right? It's a very powerful thing to have, an organization as such to really trust, someone to really start something new and really take ownership of that. So how did you develop that confidence to really say, you know what, I'm gonna really just knock this shit out, man, and really do the thing?
Yeah, I'll say that's I mean, it's so many answers to that. Number one, definitely my upbringing, come from a very solid foundation. Big shout out to my parents. They raised us well. So I mean, they raised us as confident girls, growing up. So I'll say that. Additionally, attending the HBCU, right? This is where you breed talent, top talent at HBCUs. And then also, like, when you on the street, you could tell somebody went to an HBCU by the way they walk, the way they talk.
Word.
We got a different swag on us, right? We got a different level of confidence. So I'll say a big part of is that, like, big shout out again to my HBCU. And then, just kind of raising my hand and just throwing my hat in the ring. I've never really been afraid to fail. So, I mean, the worst that could happen was I failed. Okay. Nobody could still say that they did what I did. But.
Exactly. And you kind of mentioned, your upbringing, and a huge part of that upbringing was, of course, the morals and values that your family have instilled in you as a woman growing up. But again, as I mentioned, you also have a twin sister, right? I had the pleasure of talking to her as well. So I'm just kind of curious to know, how has having a twin sister influenced your personal and professional life, right? Both of you are very, you know, dominant individuals. You have your own respective personal brands, right? But you can tell that, of course, you just love each other and you guys grow a lot because of each other. So, what was that like for you growing up, having a twin sister that you could truly rely on? It was just like some of the pros and cons of that. Like, what were some of the good things? What were some of the bad days? Like, how was that for you growing up?
Yeah. No. So look, we are a family of all girls. So some people think it might be just me and Shonda. It's not just us two. It's 5 girls of us total.
I didn't hear that. She did
So
that.
yeah, so we're like in the middle. But we have a little sister. She's super dope. Big shout out to Kai. She's a pageant girly. She's an actress. She just shot with like Tyler Perry and stuff for something coming
Awesome.
out. So she's amazing. Big shout out to my twin sister. So she has some great things going on. And yeah, I have 2 older sisters, but as far as specifically the twin dynamic, honestly, like we just motivate each other, right? I think that there is a level of like healthy motivation where she wants to like see me at my best, so I allow that to fuel me, and then vice versa. So I mean, look, she has her doctorate. I'm in my doctorate program trying to catch up to her. Like it's a healthy motivation for each other. So it's definitely something that I really value, and I value my relationship with all my sisters. So.
Right, I love that. Shout out to the fam. What are some of the, you say you're not afraid to fail, and I think that's dope. As I don't think anybody should be, because again, you're doing something, different. But what are some of the biggest challenges that you can say you face, in your role, as as the working in equity and inclusion and things of that sort? What are some of the challenges that you might have faced or that you are currently facing, if any, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Can you repeat that? It started to cut out a little bit.
Yeah, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face, in your role working, in diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's whether it's old, whether it's currently, but how did you overcome those challenges, in your role with the Commanders?
So I'll say challenges for any professional woman. One thing can be limited access to opportunity, right? I had a
Mm,
really dope conversation with one of my peers who works for another team. And we were talking about how we have the talent, right? There's so many women out there who's qualified, but some of them may not have the network to get exposure to the decision makers. So what I've noticed is that there's a gap of professional women who are highly qualified, but they may not have the mentorship, right? They may not have the
mm,
sponsorship, which is different than mentorship. So I think it's really important to identify your core network at the very beginning of your career, allow it to evolve with
mm.
you, but just making sure that you really have but the tribe of individuals that's really committed to your success.
Wow, I love that. And how do you think, and being that you mentioned that, how do you think, do you see that changing in the very near future, especially with the growth of, just working in sports and where the trajectory is going? Do you see that changing at some point to women being able to have more resources and have more of a network? How do you think that's going to look in the very near future, just based off of how things are looking now within
Yeah.
sport?
Yeah, no, look, that's a great question. So I've honestly watched it change. So look, I know the face gives 20 something, but I've been in this industry for about 10
Oh
years.
wow, yeah, 10 years
Um,
now, right? Yeah.
yes, I've been in this industry for 10 years. So I've literally watched it change, right? So I've watched programs be developed for women so that women can be in more leadership roles. So I'm
Awesome.
really excited for the progress that is taking place in sports, but still also recognizing that, we have some steps to take.
Awesome. And speaking of like seeing the programs that's been, added or incorporated, um, are there any initiatives or anything that you've been able to incorporate within your role there that you're most proud of? Like, what can you say? I was able to do this, and I'm extremely proud of this, even if it's not at its peak. But you just happy that you got something started and things of that sort. So, what initiative can you say that you created that you feel like, wow, this is really like my creation, and I'm super proud because I know where this is going to go in the very near future,
Yeah,
if any.
look, it's so many examples, but I will kind of hone in and talk about our HBC partnerships and relationships.
I love
So
it.
back when I first got here, that didn't exist, right? These HBCU partnerships, whether it be reaching out to them for group ticketing or reaching out to them for some sort of programming, those relationships didn't exist. So I really took it upon myself, even before being in DE&I, to reach out and to
Hmm.
establish these relationships with Bowie, Howard, and all our surrounding HBCUs. One particular program that I can speak to is we hosted an HBCU sales symposium in which we invited HBCU students
I
come in,
remember
learn
seeing
about
that.
sales, and we actually hired a couple of HBCU students from that, and one of them actually is a Delaware State graduate. So yes,
Awesome. We
yeah.
love
So
it.
I'm
We just love it.
excited
We just
about
love it.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dope. That's awesome. And how do you? This might be a very uh, it's a tricky question, but how would you measure the success and impact of some of the initiatives that you create in your role there, if that makes sense, right? Like, how do you measure the success? Like, how do you say that this is working, this isn't working? Especially as the creator of something, right? In your role, you've been asked to kind of do something full time. Like, how do you measure when something is working, when it's not working? Just like, what does that look like, for you as the person responsible for that position?
Yo, that's actually a very brilliant question, because that's something I struggled with when I first entered into this role, right? I came from a world of sales and revenue generation. My numbers spoke for me, right? You can tell
Right.
that I'm amazing by looking at these numbers
The
on the
num-
page.
yep.
But I had to figure out how to make success tangible and how to measure what we're doing, right?
Hmm.
Which isn't common. So what I had to do was I had to figure out, like, maybe it's like a level of engagement that I am using as a metric system, or maybe it's maybe a number of like hires or something like that. So it's all, without getting too specific. I
Yeah.
think that in DE&I in general, you do have to measure the success. It can get tricky, but there are ways where you can like track, how you're doing. So
I'm sure. That's dope. That's dope. And I kind of want to pivot a little bit now, just to your author career, and just like you writing and having a book, the Success Playbook. Were you really quickly? Are you in the process of making another book, or did you write another book, or is it just that one book? I
I
can't.
wrote two.
You wrote two, right? Okay, yeah. Can you remind me of the second one? I should have knew this, but it just
No,
slipped
it's
my
all
mind
good.
completely. What was
I
the
used to,
second book that you wrote?
yeah, I pushed the success playbook, but I also wrote the art of taking L's.
Got it. Okay, cool. So what are as an author of, that wrote two books now, what are the main themes of your writing? Whether it be the Success Playbook and the second book that you wrote, what are the themes of your writing, and what messages do you hope to convey, to the readers or to your audience? Why was writing those books, important to you? And yeah, what message did you just kind of want to push out, with those two books? And now being an author, I think that's super dope.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what motivated me was I used to get, or I still do get, a lot of people who reach out and they want to get an understanding of my journey, and they want to get an understanding of the highs, the lows, all the things. So I wanted to make it and put it into a book so that I can massively distribute this to everyone who's inquiring. So that was my motivation behind it. My general theme is self-help. So I write books on, success and confidence building books so that everyone can know that, success is at their fingertips, right?
Cool.
The odds are against me, right? I am a Black woman working in a male dominated field. I am
Yes.
also, I went to an HBCU. People just got hip to how amazing HBCUs are back in 2020.
Facts.
So people wasn't
Facts.
if they saw, oh, Delaware State versus University of Delaware, they going with University of Delaware. They
Mhm.
wasn't checking for HBCU students like that. So I had like all these things that kind of, I'm not gonna say it worked against me, but it kind of made me an underdog in certain instances. But in spite of all of
Mm.
that, I still rose to the occasion.
Mm.
So I want to share that story and make sure that other people know, like, don't let nothing hold you back.
Yeah, I love that. And like I'm very big on self-help as well. Like I'm very big on self-help and like, developing myself and having that confidence and belief and things of that sort. But sometimes, let alone as a woman, it gets very tricky. So for this question specifically, I want you to kind of cater to the women if you can. But just as a woman who, again, you love self-help and you talk about self-help and things of that sort, it's easier said than done, right? It's easy to say, I kept going, I kept pushing, the odds are stacked against me, so I give up. Um, but there has to be moments where like sometimes you just don't want to, right? Sometimes
Mhm.
you just don't want to like show up. Sometimes you just don't want to, okay, hear about, oh, just believe in yourself. Sometimes you just don't
Mhm.
want to hear that. Sometimes like life just get hard, it gets challenging. So for the women that might watch this or listen, in the near future, what can you say to inspire and motivate them to truly find that, just find that hope, you know what I mean? And just, get over that slump, right? What does it truly take? And how can they just kind of, truly find it if they're not motivated to do so
Yeah.
right now?
I love that question. And as you were talking, like I literally had to think about this. I don't know if I am for the person who is not motivated at the moment, because I want you to
Mm,
sit and rest in that, right? There's obviously some things that
mm,
you need to process. There may be some
mm.
things that you need to navigate through, maybe depression there, and maybe so sit in those feelings, right? I'm more so for the individual who's motivated, but they need the practical skills and tools in order to get there. So I teach
I love that. I
mentorship.
love
I
that.
teach on sponsorship. I teach on utilizing your network to get you to the next level, right?
I love that.
And I have nothing against the person who's unmotivated. That's fine, but I'm more so I cater to more so the person that wants to get there, but they just don't know how.
I love that. That was beautiful. I love how you did. I've never really heard that before. Like
That
that was
just
a
dropped
very
in
great
my
way to.
spirit. Thank you, Jesus.
That was very powerful, man. I think that was dope. And kind of like also not only as an author, but you also have a way of getting your messages across as a speaker, right? You are very engaged with different speaking engagements. You speak for many different organizations. That's kind of what you do now. People book you to speak because they believe that your experience and just like your messages are very powerful. Can you share any memorable experiences or feedback from your audience that probably really stuck with you? Like, what was that one engagement that you've done? And you might have just gotten some good feedback that really just stuck with you and said, wow, this really just had a significant impact on me. This is really what I want to do for the rest of my life, right? Like, this was just super dope. So, what was that one moment that was just like, wow, like, this really dawned on me that this is really what I do?
I'll say it's two moments that really stuck out to me. One moment is, so I had to do a presentation in front of the company. I was I was newer to the team, and I had to talk about like ticket sales and group ticket sales. So I was just talking to the company about this new amazing thing that we have going on, and somehow, some way, I don't know. I guess I went and I was excited, enthusiastic, and things like that. So afterward, people were just walking up to me like, "Oh my God, you were amazing! Oh my God, you did so good! Like, do you want to be a motivational speaker?" Whole time I'm talking about tickets. Like, I ain't talking about nothing else.
Mm,
I ain't trying to motivate you. I'm just talking about tickets.
you just talking about
And
ticket sales, yeah.
somebody said, "Oh my God, your presentation was so good. You make me want to go to church off of
Oh,
tickets."
excuse me. Ticket sales? What?
Off
That's
of
crazy.
tickets, okay.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I thought that was funny, but it also kind of just confirmed in my spirit, like, okay, God, this is the lane that you really have me in. But then secondly, I'll say more recently, I was on a panel, and it was for some students at Bowie State University, and it was a few students that walked up to me crying after, because they just felt so motivated, and they felt like so confident after hearing from me, and they were asking me like, how did you get to be so confident? Like, I'm really working on this. And I just talked to them after, but it was just the beauty in being able to pour into other people to the point where they were emotionally moved and they were motivated to go to their next level. So
I love that. That's beautiful. And as somebody who exude a lot of confidence and just really always is at that motivated level, what do you do to kind of pour into your cup, right? So not only are you pouring into others, but of course you have to be filled in order to kind of give those messages and give the value on a consistent basis. So what does a typical um, day of therapy look like for you, right? Like how do you kind of fill up your cup, right? What do you do to kind of get to keep you sane and keep you going, right? Of course, it's not always just kind of get up and perform and do what you're supposed to do. But sometimes you need days to really kind of, refill your tank, right? So how do you kind of stay on go? Or what are some of your tips and tricks to kind of stay, motivated and things of that sort?
Yeah, well, definitely it's a combination of like natural and spiritual, right? So I like to start my day with prayer, right? I talk to my Heavenly Father, I talk to Jesus Christ every morning before I talk to anybody else. That's how I get my fuel, right? That's how I get my cup filled. Additionally, right after that, I'm in the gym, right? And I'm posting on my story.
Where
Did you sweat
she'd be
today?
like, yo, did you sweat today? Yo,
Yo, I be
that
having
would be pretty
people,
funny.
I be walking around minding my business on game day. And I've had several occasions where people just walked up to me and asked, did you sweat today?
Did you sweat today? That's so
Yeah.
funny. But
Ain't that
that's your thing. It's dope.
funny?
It's dope. Because I also kind of now that kind of goes into a personal brand too. It's like people know you for working out and they know you for kind of being that spiritual and kind of helping them get through their experiences. So I think that's dope, like how you really create that brand for yourself. And kind of speaking of, like, how do you kind of, well, I don't want to say separate, but you have people that truly, how can I ask this question? You have people that look at you and they look up to you in terms of like, I'm trying to figure out a great way to ask this question. Some people may look at you as a form of filling up their cup, right? Like sometimes you're so motivating that, like, in order for them to get going, they have to see what you post. They have to
Mhm,
see what you talk about today, right?
mhm,
So that means that you constantly have to show up, right? You have to show
mhm,
up. You have to kind of post. You have to just kind of do what you typically do. On the days that you don't feel like doing those things, though, if there's even those days, like if there's even days where you just don't feel like kind of showing up, like how do you just kind of be moved to just not be there for yourself but for other people? Like does it get overwhelming sometimes knowing that so many people look up to you, if that makes sense, like knowing that so many people are reliant upon you to just like kind of get through their day, if that makes, what I'm trying to say? Like
yeah.
how do you just like, how do you not get overwhelmed or burnt out or like just kind of fatigued a little bit, not just trying to be there for yourself but really just kind of inspiring other people to be there for themselves as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So look, I give myself grace. Because every day I do not feel like showing up. And look, I used to be on go, 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 but last year I went through something that kind of knocked the wind out of me, by losing my
Hmm.
mother. And I couldn't show up for myself, let alone anybody else. So it's all about grace, right? And I'll even say like a couple weeks ago, I just returned to my gram stories with the did you sweat today? People were
Hmm.
messaging me like, hey, you didn't post. Like, I want to press yes because I finally worked out today. So I mean,
That's
it kind of
beautiful.
motivated me to like, get out of my hiatus and come back to the gram. But at the end of the day, like my health, my sanity and all that comes first. So
I love it. And now let's kind of talk about, your just podcasting a little bit and just like, your voice in doing two of them, right? You have the Success Playbook podcast and you also have the Double Dose Pod. What motivated you guys to, start the podcast and really kind of get more out there to the media? You see nowadays, man, like everybody want a podcast, bro. Like everybody want to talk. Everybody is talking about sports specifically. So I think this one I'm gonna talk about the Success Playbook podcast first. Um, there's so many people talking about sports, right? Or like it's just so many different voices and opinions. What made you say, you know what, I feel like I'm good enough to kind of have my voice heard out there as well? And did you second guess it at all? Like when did you know that it was time to just start it? And what kind of moved you to kind of, get into that area of podcasting as well?
yeah, no, that's a good question. So, like, look, it's so many people out there that can talk circles around me when it comes to
Nah,
sports. Like,
facts.
that's fine. That's cute. Okay. But at the end of the day, like, I found my lane. And my lane is talking to these individuals, whether it be athletes, celebrities, whatever, sports people, and just figuring out who they are as humans and tell their stories of success on a
Mhm.
platform, right? And I'm also using this as an opportunity to elevate Black voices, historically marginalized people that you usually don't hear from on these public platforms. So my area is so niche, right? I'm talking about sports, but I'm also talking about success, career navigation, personal growth, personal development, and all the things.
I love that.
So I think that like there's room for the heavy sports content, right? But there's also
Mhm.
my podcast. So
I love it. I
I
love
say,
that because I think that's where ours are very similar because I think, like with their podcast, although it's not really just catered to just only sports, again, you do kind of talk about, who truly is the person, how they kind of persevere through their experiences, and you kind of share their story, which is why I think yours is doing as well as it's doing. My question to you is, as somebody who also hosts a podcast, and although you're not typically asking the questions today, when you do have those guests on there, a lot of people don't realize that when it comes to podcasting, like it's not easy to have someone just feel comfortable enough to just share their full story or just be that open. Like you kind of got to have some type of like it's truly a skill to have somebody to be able to make somebody truly open up
Yeah.
and really share their story. But people don't see that on our end, right? They just see, okay, we're there asking questions. Okay, well, cool. But for you, what is your strategies when it comes to prepping for a guest, right? What is your strategy to, when you have a big guest or when somebody's getting on the show, what is the first thing you're thinking? What are you preparing for? And what's like your go-to to kind of like prepare for that conversation to really get that guest to not just talk about their journey, but really have them feel confident and safe, talking with you, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. So, I definitely do my homework, right? I do my research. Additionally, my questions are all pretty much the same theme, right? They go in various buckets, and it's the same cadence that you'll hear on every episode.
Mm-hmm.
One particular part that I notice people's guards usually go down is when I go into my segment called "Put Some Respect on My Name." Quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when like I let the person like pop their stuff, right? Tell me all the amazing things that you've done, because historically, as Black people, especially Black women, we're taught to suppress that because you don't want to be braggadocious. You got to be humble. You got to be gracious. Right? So no, on this here platform,
we don't want to talk about that.
All the amazing things that you did, and I'm going to big you up, right? So it's usually at that point that I see people start to open up and they feel comfortable, and then from there we can, pivot into the rest of the conversation.
All right, well, real quick, I know this is not your podcast, but now I kind of want you to talk all your stuff. So really quickly, can you kind of do the same exact thing that you do on yours? Can you go ahead and just talk your stuff? Let the people hear about all of the good stuff that you've done in your career up until this point. No humbleness, no. I need you to go ahead and just talk your talk.
Don't mind if I do. Well, hi everyone. My name is Chanelle Reynolds, of course. I am a 2-time published author, so you can find both of my books on Amazon. I am a 2-time public TEDx speaker. So with my most recent TED Talk being in Johannesburg, South Africa at the University of Johannesburg. Furthermore, I actually started a multi-million-dollar department for an NFL team. Not a lot of people can say that. Glory be to God. I started my career with the Philadelphia 76ers. I've been consistent, and I've been going on for the past 10 years. What else? The list goes on.
It does.
Stages. I have great stages alongside some industry greats such as Jamel Hill, Sha'Carri Richardson, Ashley Nicole Moss, who I know is a friend of the show. So it's been an amazing ride, and I'm looking forward to 2024.
Yeah, talk that talk. Go crazy as you should. It was only right that I did that since I had you. We're gonna wrap up shortly. We're gonna wrap up shortly, but I got a few more things I want to touch on. Who are some of your biggest influences and mentors? And how have they helped you shape your career? Like, especially as women in sports or just as a podcaster, like who do you study? Who do you look at? Where do you get your gems from? Who are your biggest influences, like just in your career up until this point?
Yeah, no, I love this question. So I'm gonna talk about the Black women in my life who really kind of pushed me. But I will say that I've had allies and sponsors who have been white men, who have been Black men, who have been they just people who just took a chance on me. So shout out to them. Shout out to them. Tony Fur, who was my first boss. Just so many people. But okay, I'm gonna use this opportunity to give flowers to some of my mentors. Marsheila Haynes, she is the head of DEI at Fox, Black woman, aka Terry Hines. Awesome. She is the head of communication at Fox, SVP of communication at Fox. She's a soror. She's amazing. Who else?
AKAs, man. Love them.
Listen. So when I went to the White House a couple of months ago, and I met Carrie Champion for the first time. I am naturally shy as a person. Don't let this fool you, because I'm just, in performance mode. But I'm standing in a corner and Carrie Champion just walks up to me and just talks to me, embraces me, pours into me, and she's just been amazing ever since. So big shout out to Carrie Champion. Big shout out to Jamel Hill, who again, some heavy hitters, but they are invested in seeing some of the newer women, like, go forth. So Jamel Hill has been always amazing, always encouraging. Who else? S.A. Iguodala, who works at Apple. She is a industry disruptor, started in the NFL as general counsel. Now she's at Apple and she's just doing big things. And I always tell her, look, like, if you didn't do what you did, I would not be able to shake tables in the rooms that I'm in. So big shout out to SA. It's so many other people, but yes, those are my peeps.
Awesome. I love that.
Sorry. Shout out to all.
No, you're good.
Shout out to all of the NFL DEI leads. We encourage each other. We push each other. I don't want to name anybody because I don't want to forget anybody, but big shout out to them too. They've been amazing, and I stand on their shoulders. So
as you should. And what do you see? I kind of touched a little bit. Asked this question earlier, but if you could dive in a little bit more, what do you see as the future of DEI in sports or other industries? Right, not even just NFL, but like how do you see just that? And really quickly, can you kind of elaborate on what that truly means for people who don't know what that is? And how do you just see it growing across all sports or all businesses, whatever the case may have you? Like, where do you see that going in the near future?
Yeah, look, so DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So basically, I'm tasked with making sure, of course, all of our staff feels seen, heard, and valued. Everybody feels like they belong. Furthermore, I have various programs that touch externally, so creating equity there. We have a program for diverse entrepreneurs, so working with that, and it's just various other ways. So DE&I is internal and external, right? It's employee facing and it's also community facing. So where do I see DE&I? Look, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not going anywhere. It's been around for years. We just called it different things, right? Back in 1968, we called it civil rights. Then we called it affirmative action, and now we're calling it diversity, equity, and inclusion. Granted, right now, yes, it's facing some challenges, but these are not challenges that I don't think that we can navigate through. So.
I love it. What are if you can share any, you don't have to get too specific, you might not be able to share any, but what are your long-term goals, not just in your career with the Commanders, but just in general, if you have any, how do you plan on achieving them? So like, what are some of the long-term things that you're working on that maybe some of us can look forward to, or that you can share at least? And just, how do you plan on getting there, if anything?
Yeah, long-term goals. Look, I just want to keep shaking the table and keep fighting the power and just keep making room for people in this industry for them to show up authentically as themselves. So that's always been my goal. As far as like personal, I definitely want to start hosting some live shows. So we'll see.
That would be lit.
We'll see. So,
how do you find the time to manage all of this, right? So now, like, you have your career, you have podcasting, you have book, right? You're an author, you have all of these different, gigs that you do. How do you find the time to manage all of these things, right? Of course, you make time for what you want to make time for. That's what we all say, right? We stay busy, we get it done by all means. But it just takes some type of organization to really be able to do these things. How do you find the time to balance all of this? Like, and find time to really do all of the things that you set out to do for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. So look, when I have the time, I maximize it. Because you're not gonna always have the time. Right now I'm in the off season, so this is the time where I am bulk recording episodes, right? I am scheduling them out. Maybe I'm recording 3 episodes in one night and just having them in my archives, because I know when I'm in season, I'm not going to have that much time. Right. Same thing, like I've been traveling for work, so I've been really focused on Commanders work and things like that, but I'm trying to outsource so that, my bad, I think, did you hear that? Outlook?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so I'm trying to outsource. So now I have people helping me with social media and things like that. So you're not always gonna have the time, but number one, you got to make the time, and when you have the time, you got to maximize it.
I love it. All right, we're gonna wrap up in a second. What do you enjoy? So now, what do you enjoy doing in your free time? So I know you say you maximize that, but what do you? Let's just take work out of all like everything. It's kind of hard to do that sometimes, but let's just focus
Yes.
on Chanel now at this moment. Like, what do you like to do? Right? What are your hobbies? What do you like to do in your free time? Like, do you like to just do self care days? I know you like to work out. Do you like to go watch movies? Go get some ice cream? Like, what's the kid Chanel like? Like, what do you like to do to keep you happy and just fun stuff? Like, where you just not focused on work?
Not focused on work. Yes,
You work so
workout.
much. It's crazy. You work so much that you just really don't even know what you like to do in your free time. Isn't it crazy?
I'm also in school. Like I think y'all forgot that. So yeah. Um, when I'm not, I'm a foodie. I like finding new
Okay.
restaurants. Yeah, I like doing that. I love to travel. So whether it be for like conferences or whatever, I like to travel. And yeah, I like spending time with loved ones.
Last few questions. First one, since you mentioned that you're a foodie, this is just came out of nowhere. But if you could have dinner with three people dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Dinner with three people. St. Marshall,
Hmm.
first Black woman president in the NBA, president of the Dallas Mavericks. Um, who else?
It could be anybody, your idols, your like people you like. I mean, just three random people and why? Why you would choose to have dinner with them?
Okay. All right. St. Marshall. Um, yeah, St. Marshall. Do I gotta really pick
So
another
Russell,
group? Like,
you're not
what?
gonna figure it. I mean, I was just
I
kind of
know
curious.
this is a
Okay,
great
last
question.
question.
I hate questions I'm not prepared for.
No,
I
that's
answer
okay. I
all
know.
the other
That's all right.
stuff. I can answer all the other stuff
Yeah,
all
you
day.
get a break. You get a pass. Yeah, you get a pass. You get a pass. All right, last question. When I ask this, I ask this to everybody. I just answer this as honest and transparent as you can. On a scale of 1 to 10, obviously one being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Where are you mentally, business wise, and where are you mentally, spiritually, and business wise? Right. So when I say business wise, that's like work, just career, and the endeavors you got going on. Yeah, mentally and spiritually. So where are you in all three categories on the scale of 1 to 10? And why do you give yourself that rating?
Okay. Uh, I'll say 6.5.
Is that for all three, or you do each one
Oh, we gonna
individually?
do each one? Okay. Mentally, I will say I'll say 6.5. Business, I'll say 7.5. What's the other one? Spiritually?
Spiritually.
Spiritually, I'll say 7. Um, yeah.
And why you give yourself them ratings?
Okay. Spiritually, because I mean, no matter how locked in we are, it's always something we can be doing more of.
Hmm.
So like you can be more disciplined, you can be a better, follower. So yeah. Business wise, I think what did I say? 6.5, 7.5?
You said 7.5 as well.
7.5. I'll say that because look, I appreciate where I am. And I am grateful and I'm thankful, but I'm always looking for that next step. But I'm also embracing the moment.
Of course.
So I appreciate
And
that.
then and then the
Mentally.
last one, I think you said 6.
What did I
You said
say?
6. I think you
I
said
did
6 for mentally. If I'm not mistaken, yeah.
mentally,
6 or 7. Hold on.
yeah. So mama's is tired. I need a little vacation. But yeah, and then just like look, still navigating grief. I don't feel like we talk about that enough as a people
Yeah.
because look, this is crazy. But I am yeah. still navigating all that. So
we'll dive more into that conversation when we get to meet up in person, and having studio talk. But Chanelle, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you hopping on for the interview. I don't want to hold you for too long tonight. I know it's getting late. Keep doing your thing, man. Like I think I can't express it enough. You know, we love what you're doing. Big fan. Hope we get to connect soon. And look, you know, keep doing your thing. I think that's the only thing you know how to do. I can't see you doing any wrong. So keep doing your thing.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon. Be safe. Stay out of trouble. And good luck on the season, man. I'm not a Commanders fan, but
Today you are.
I'm an Eagles fan. Oh, okay, you're right. Today I am. So after 12 o'clock, it's a new day. So I'm gonna let the people know as of right now, as of June, because I don't know when this is gonna be posted, but as of June, what's today's date?
5th.
June 5th. As of June 5th, I am a Commanders fan. But you know, by the time we watch this, I will be back to my Eagles. So so no, have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
Get to the cake. I'm on a mission for maze, no matter how long it's gonna take. I could just see it already. Give me that new Benz or the Wraith.